It was the most important meeting of her life, but it ended up being the last moment of her marriage. She sat in an auditorium with 5,000 of her colleagues, waiting for a promotion. Instead, she watched her entire world shatter on a 50-foot screen. We all know the pain of being lied to. It is a cold, sharp feeling that steals the air from your lungs. We trust people, we build a life with them, and we believe in the promises they make. We believe in the loyalty we have earned. But for Jessica, that belief was a mistake. She had been married to Samantha for 12 years. 12 years of shared dreams and quiet nights. 12 years of thinking they were a team, right up until the moment her boss Mark started his presentation. He clicked a button, the Jumbotron lit up, and Jessica's life was split in two. This is the story of how a private betrayal became a public spectacle. It is a story about a humiliating exposure, a cold-blooded boss, and the moment a wife saw the truth about her marriage broadcast for thousands to see. If this story touches your heart, please like this video as it truly helps the channel reach more people. And we would love to know where you are watching from. Please comment with your name and the city or state you live in. And finally, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story. Now let's begin. The convention center hummed. It was not a loud noise, but the sound of 5,000 people settling into their seats, a massive collective rustle of fabric and quiet coughs. Jessica adjusted the blazer of her best suit. It felt tight across her shoulders, a feeling she always got when she was nervous. Today the nerves were understandable. This was the annual progress meeting, a mandatory corporate event that always ended with major announcements. This year, Jessica was certain her name would be called for the senior vice president position. She had worked for this. For 15 years she had given everything to the company. She started in the mailroom and had climbed rung by rung through sheer persistence. She was reliable. She was thorough. She was, in the words of her direct manager, the bedrock of the department. She glanced at her phone. No new messages. Samantha was here too, somewhere across the massive auditorium. They worked for the same company, a fact that used to be a source of shared understanding. They could complain about the same bad cafeteria food and celebrate the same company holidays. But Samantha was in the marketing department, a world of bright colors and loud ideas, while Jessica was in logistics, a world of spreadsheets and timelines. They were both respected. They were both, she thought, happy. Lately, however, things had felt off. Samantha had been distant. The distance was not loud or angry. It was quiet. It was the silence that settled between them at the dinner table. It was the phone being quickly turned face down on the counter. It was the late nights at the office that had become more and more frequent over the past 2 months. Jessica, ever logical, blamed it on the pressure. Samantha was also rumored to be in the running for a major promotion in her own department. It was a stressful time for both of them. Jessica had tried to bridge the gap. She suggested a weekend away. Samantha had countered with a vague, maybe next month, honey, I'm just swamped. Jessica told herself it was fine. They were a solid couple. 12 years. They had built a home, a life, a shared world. A little work stress was not going to break them. A chime echoed through the speakers and the lights in the auditorium dimmed. A spotlight hit the enormous stage. Jessica put her phone away, her heart beginning to pound with anticipation for the announcements. She sat up straighter. She was in the 10th row, a prime spot reserved for senior managers. She could see the names of the board members on placards at the front. Samantha, being in a different division, was seated with her team somewhere in the vast middle section. Jessica scanned the crowd quickly, but she could not find her. The CEO, Mark, walked onto the stage. He was a man who looked exactly like a CEO, tall, silver hair, an expensive suit, and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He was known for being demanding but also for rewarding loyalty. Good morning, family. Mark's voice boomed, amplified to fill every corner of the room. A polite corporate good morning rippled back from the 5,000 employees. We have had an incredible year, Mark began, pacing the stage. Incredible growth. Incredible innovation. And it is all thanks to you, the people in this room. Jessica felt a small smile touch her lips. He loved this part. The validation. But you know, Mark continued, stopping in the center of the stage, at this company we value more than just numbers. We value integrity. We value transparency. And above all, we value loyalty. Jessica nodded. This was why she was perfect for the SVP role. She was the definition of loyalty. We value our employees who give their all, Mark said, his tone shifting slightly. The ones who burn the midnight oil. The ones who are so dedicated they practically live at the headquarters. Jessica thought of her own late nights, the dinners she had eaten at her desk. She had done that. In fact, Mark said, turning toward the massive screen behind him, the JUMBOTRON as the employees called it, large enough to broadcast a football game. We have so much dedication, sometimes we capture it on camera. We wanted to highlight some of our most dedicated employees today. A knot formed in Jessica's stomach. This was not the usual script. Mark usually stuck to pie charts and revenue projections. Mark held a small remote in his hand. We have an extensive security system on our campus, as you know, for safety. But it also catches moments of true collaboration. Moments that define our company culture. Jessica leaned forward. She saw her own manager give her an encouraging nod. This was it. They were going to announce the promotion. Perhaps they were showing a clip of her team finalizing the big shipping project last month. Let's take a look, Mark said, his voice smooth as silk. He clicked the remote. The 50-foot screen, which had been showing the company logo, flickered to black. Then an image appeared. It was grainy, black and white, clearly from a security camera. The timestamp in the corner read 1:47 a.m. The location stamp read, Parking Garage Level 4. Jessica recognized the location instantly. It was the executive parking level. A car was visible. A familiar car. A dark blue sedan. It was Samantha's car. Jessica felt a sudden cold spike of confusion. Why was Mark showing Samantha's car in the parking garage at nearly 2 a.m? As I said, Mark's voice echoed, our employees work very, very late. The video was silent. On the screen, the driver's side door of Samantha's car opened. Samantha stepped out. She was wearing the gray coat Jessica had bought her for their anniversary. Jessica's heart stuttered. What was going on? Then the passenger door opened. Another woman stepped out. Jessica recognized her instantly. It was Linda, a senior director from Samantha's department. A woman Jessica had met at company picnics. A woman who was also married. On the JUMBOTRON, Samantha and Linda stood by the car, looking around the empty garage. Linda smiled. Samantha smiled back. Jessica stopped breathing. It happened fast, but on a 50-foot screen, it felt agonizingly slow. Linda reached out and touched Samantha's face. Samantha leaned into the touch. And then, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the parking garage, Samantha pulled Linda closer. They kissed. It was not a friendly peck. It was a deep, lingering kiss. Samantha's hand moved to the back of Linda's head, holding her there. The entire auditorium was silent. 5,000 people were watching Jessica's wife kiss another woman. Jessica just stared. Her mind could not process the image. It was too large. Too public. The video looped. The kiss ended and then it started again. Samantha. Linda. The parking garage. 1:47 a.m. A low murmur started in the crowd. It began as a few confused whispers and quickly grew into a wave of shocked gasps. People were turning in their seats. Jessica was well known. Her marriage to Samantha was well known. They were all looking at her. Jessica felt the blood drain from her face. She was cold. She was burning. She could not move. She just stared at the screen, watching her wife's betrayal on a loop. Ah, Mark said from the stage, his voice dripping with false surprise. It seems we have the wrong clip. My apologies. That is not the collaboration I intended to show. He clicked the remote. The screen went black. But the image was burned into everyone's mind. And the humiliation was just beginning. The silence that followed the screen going black was worse than the gasps. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. 5,000 people and not one of them knew what to do. The air was thick with second-hand embarrassment and a cruel, palpable curiosity. Jessica sat frozen, a statue in the 10th row. She could feel the eyes on her, hundreds of pairs of eyes, all turning to see her reaction. They were not looking at the stage anymore. They were looking at her. She felt a hand on her arm. It was her manager, Greg. He was a decent man and his face was pale with shock. Jessica, he whispered, his voice cracking. Are you? He did not finish the sentence. What could he ask? Are you okay? Did you know? Is that what it looked like? Jessica could not answer. She could not move her head. She could not tear her gaze from the blank JUMBOTRON, where the image of her wife and Linda was still playing in her mind. The way Samantha's hand had held Linda's head. The way she had leaned in. It was intimate. It was practiced. It was not a mistake. On stage, Mark was attempting to recover, but his attempt was feeble, and Jessica suspected it was intentionally so. Well, as I was saying, Mark continued, his voice just a little too loud, a little too steady, we have important announcements to make. Let's move on to the regional sales figures. He clicked the remote again and a bar graph appeared on the screen. A bar graph. As if he had not just detonated a bomb in the middle of the room. As if he had not just taken Jessica's private life and turned it into corporate entertainment. The sudden shift from intense, personal drama to boring sales figures was jarring. It was absurd. It made the whole thing feel like a planned attack. A thought, cold and sharp, cut through Jessica's fog. He knew. Mark knew exactly what was on that tape. Why? The whispers around her were growing louder. People had recovered from the initial shock and were now dissecting the moment. Her wife. With Linda from marketing. Did you see her face? The boss had to know. You don't accidentally show that. How humiliating. Humiliating. That was the word. It was not just betrayal. It was not just sadness. It was a profound public shaming. Mark had held her down and invited 5,000 people to watch her heart break. Jessica's phone, which she was still clutching in her left hand, vibrated. She looked down. A text message. From Samantha. The name on the screen made Jessica's stomach churn with a violent mix of rage and nausea. The message read, Jess, I am so sorry. It's not what it looks like. Please, we need to talk. It's not what it looks like. Jessica stared at the words. It's not what it looks like. She had just watched it 50 feet high in high-definition security footage. It looked exactly like what it was. It was her wife kissing another woman in a parking garage in the middle of the night. Rage, pure and hot, finally eclipsed the shock. It propelled her to her feet. The movement was sudden. The scraping of her chair legs on the floor was loud in the still tense room. Everyone who had been whispering immediately went silent. Everyone who was pretending to look at the bar graph snapped their heads back to her. Even Mark, on stage, paused his sentence about Q3 projections. Jessica stood in the 10th row, her hands shaking, her purse clutched in her fist. She looked around, her eyes scanning the faces staring back at her. She saw pity. She saw curiosity. She saw a few cruel smirks in the back. She turned and looked for Samantha's section. It was across the aisle and several dozen rows back. She found it, and her eyes locked onto the back of Samantha's head. Samantha was not looking at her. She was bent over, her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Good. Let her shake. Jessica turned away. She was not going to run to her. She was not going to make another scene. She was just going to leave. She began to walk. Her footsteps echoed. High heels on the polished floor. Thick, thick, thick. Each step felt like a hammer blow. She kept her head high. She refused to run. She refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. She walked past the rows of stunned colleagues. She walked past the vice presidents and the directors. She walked past the people who had respected her for 15 years and who now saw her as a victim. A fool. She reached the massive double doors at the back of the auditorium. A security guard, looking bewildered, held one open for her. She stepped out into the bright, carpeted lobby. The silence of the lobby was a relief, but it was also empty. She was alone. The moment the door swung shut behind her, cutting off the sound of Mark's voice resuming his presentation, her legs gave out. She stumbled against the wall, dropping her purse. The contents spilled onto the floor. A lipstick, her keys, a wallet. He did not care. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the garish corporate carpet. She finally allowed herself to breathe. The breath came out as a ragged, torn sob. It was real. It had really happened. Her marriage was over. And her boss had been the one to show her. She sat there, hidden from the auditorium, and let the first tears of betrayal and humiliation fall. She was not just crying for the loss of Samantha. She was crying for the loss of her dignity. She had no idea how long she sat there. 5 minutes? 10? It felt like an eternity. She was vaguely aware of the muffled sound of applause from the auditorium. They were probably announcing the sales figures she had worked on. Then the double doors burst open again. It was Samantha. Her face was a mess. Mascara was streaming down her cheeks, her eyes wide with panic and fear. Jessica, she cried, rushing forward. Jessica instinctively recoiled, pushing herself further against the wall. "Don't," Jessica whispered, her voice hoarse. "Don't touch me. Jess, please." Samantha knelt on the carpet in front of her, ignoring the spilled items from her purse. "You have to let me explain. It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. A mistake," Jessica said, her voice finding a sudden icy strength. "Which part? The kissing? Or getting caught on the Jumbotron?" "No. It's complicated. Linda, she doesn't mean anything. It was just, work has been so stressful and..." Jessica looked at the woman she had loved for 12 years. The woman she had built a life with. And she felt nothing. Just a cold, empty void. "How long, Samantha?" Jessica asked, her voice flat. "What? How long has this been happening?" Samantha looked away. She could not meet Jessica's eyes. And in that moment Jessica knew. This was not a one-time mistake. A few months, Samantha admitted, her voice tiny. "But it's over. I promise. Seeing it up there, seeing your face, I'll end it. I'll do anything." "You'll end it now?" Jessica let out a laugh. It was a bitter, ugly sound. "You'll end it now that 5,000 people know? Now that our boss has made you and me the laughingstock of the entire company." "He did this," Samantha said, suddenly angry, grasping for a different defense. "Mark. He did this to us. He set us up. He must have known. This wasn't an accident, Jess. This was an execution." Jessica stared at her. "He didn't make you kiss her, Samantha. But he's the one who showed it. He wanted to destroy me. To destroy us." Jessica slowly, painfully got to her feet. She used the wall to steady herself. She looked down at Samantha, who was still kneeling on the floor, a picture of pathetic desperation. "There is no us anymore," Jessica said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. She began to pick up her spilled things. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grasp her keys. "Jessica, no. Don't say that." Samantha grabbed her arm. Jessica ripped her arm away. "Get away from me. I'm going home. To my home. To pack your things." "Just wait. Where will I go?" The question was so selfish, so typical of the person Samantha had apparently become, that it solidified Jessica's resolve. "I don't care," Jessica said. "You can go back to the parking garage for all I care. But you are not coming home with me." Jessica turned and walked away, leaving her wife crying on the lobby floor of the convention center. She walked toward the exit, toward the bright, unforgiving sunlight. She had just endured the worst humiliation of her life. But as she pushed open the glass doors, she realized the nightmare was far from over. She still had to face Mark. And she needed to know why. The drive home was a blur. Jessica did not remember the traffic. She did not remember the turns she took. She drove on autopilot, her mind a screaming void. The only thing she could see was the constant replay of the Jumbotron. The kiss. The shocked faces. The look of cold control on Mark's face. When she arrived at the quiet suburban house she and Samantha had shared, the silence was deafening. Every object was a memory. The photograph on the mantel of their first anniversary trip. The 2 coffee mugs side by side by the sink. The coat rack which held Samantha's favorite red scarf. Jessica walked into the living room and, with a single sweeping motion of her arm, cleared the mantel. The picture frames shattered on the hearth. The sound was sharp and satisfying. It was the first thing that had felt real since she had walked into that auditorium. She did not cry. The humiliation had burned the tears away, leaving only a hard, cold resolve. Samantha had said Mark did this to them. That it was an execution. Jessica believed her. At least she believed the second part. This was not an accident. Mark was a man who controlled every detail. He reviewed every slide of that presentation. He would never, ever allow a random clip from security to play at the company's most important meeting. He had chosen that clip. He had chosen it to destroy Samantha. And what about her? Was she just collateral damage? Jessica looked at her work laptop on the kitchen counter. The one she had used for 15 years. The symbol of her loyalty. Mark had humiliated her too. He had taken her personal life and made it a spectacle. He had held her up to be pitted and mocked by her peers. He had done it in front of Greg, her manager. He had done it in front of the board of directors. And he had done it right before the promotion announcements. The realization hit Jessica with the force of a physical blow. The promotion. She and Samantha were not directly competing, but the company gossip chain had been buzzing. There was talk of a major restructuring of the senior leadership. Perhaps Mark didn't want either of them to advance. By exposing Samantha, he had effectively ended her career at the company. She would be fired for conduct, or at the very least she would be sidelined, her reputation ruined. And by humiliating Jessica, he had assumed she would be too broken, too ashamed to continue. He probably expected her to resign by the end of the day. He had cleared the field. "No," Jessica said aloud to the empty room. Her voice was steady. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to take my career and my marriage in the same day." Forgetting Samantha, forgetting the broken glass on the floor, Jessica walked to the laptop. She opened it. He was still an employee. She still had access. She was in logistics. She knew the company's systems inside and out. She knew where the digital files were kept. She knew the security protocols for the server that stored the presentation materials. She needed to know for certain. She needed proof. She logged in. Her password worked. She had not been locked out. Not yet. She navigated to the shared drive for the executive team. It was, of course, locked. But Jessica knew the back doors. She had helped design them. Within minutes she was in. She found the folder, Annual Progress Meeting in a funnel. Inside was the presentation file. It was a massive file, several gigabytes. She opened it. She clicked through the slides. Sales figures. Projections. Team photos. And then she found it. Embedded in the presentation, hidden just one slide after the Q3 projections, was the video file. It was not an accident. It was not a mistake. It was part of the plan. The file was clearly labeled. And 1.47.mp4. Samantha. Linda. Parking garage. 147. He had labeled it. Jessica felt a wave of dizziness. He was that arrogant. He had labeled the file and left it right there, assuming no one would ever dare to look. Or worse, assuming that the people he had destroyed would have no power to fight back. He kept digging. She found the notes section of the slide. It was a space for the presenter to see private reminders. Mark's notes for that slide were chillingly simple. Pause for reaction. Allow 30 seconds. Click to black. Feign surprise. Move to sales. Do not mention Jessica. Do not mention Jessica. He was part of the script. Her humiliation was a scheduled event. Jessica sat back, the blood pounding in her ears. This was not just a boss trying to get rid of a problematic employee. This was sociopathic. This was a calculated, malicious attack. Her phone buzzed again. It was Greg, her manager. She answered, her voice surprisingly calm. "Hello, Greg." "My God. Are you home? Are you okay?" "I'm home," she said. "Listen," Greg's voice was low, nervous. "The meeting just broke. It's a mess. Mark just announced the promotions." Jessica's stomach tightened. "And?" "He gave the SVP role to Paulson." Paulson. A man who was famously Mark's golf buddy. A man who was known for his long lunches and his inability to meet a deadline. He was the least qualified person for the job. It all clicked into place. Mark didn't want Jessica or Samantha. He wanted his friend. He had to eliminate the two most qualified candidates. He found a single stone to take down two birds. He used Samantha's infidelity to disqualify her, and Jessica's humiliation to make her quit. "Jessica? Are you there?" Greg asked. "I'm here, Greg," Jessica said, her eyes fixed on the laptop screen on the proof. "Greg, I need to ask you a question. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course. Anything. Have you ever seen Mark do anything like this before? Target someone personally? Use personal information to get rid of them?" There was a long pause on the line. "Greg. You're asking me to put my job on the line, Jessica," he said quietly. "He already put my life on the line," Jessica countered. "He did it in front of 5,000 people. I am not going to let him get away with it." Another pause. 2 years ago, Greg said, his voice barely a whisper. "We had a senior analyst in finance. A woman named Maria. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. She found an error in Mark's expense reports. A big one. He was redirecting funds." Jessica's grip on the phone tightened. "She was going to report him," Greg continued. A week later, intimate photos of her were anonymously emailed to the entire department. She was married. The photos were not of her husband. She resigned the next day. No one ever heard from her again. We all suspected it was Mark, but we had no proof. Now we do, Jessica said. What do you mean? Mark made a mistake, Greg. He left the file in the presentation. He left his notes. You have it? Greg sounded terrified. I have it, Jessica said. He didn't just expose an affair, Greg. He planned a public execution of 2 of his top employees so he could give a promotion to his friend. He violated our privacy. He used company resources to humiliate us. And you just told me he has a pattern of doing it. Jessica, what are you going to do? Jessica looked at the broken picture frames on her floor. She thought of Samantha's pathetic excuses. She thought of Mark's smug face on that stage. I'm going to do what I do best, Greg, Jessica said. I'm in logistics. I know how to move things from point A to point B. And I'm going to move Mark from his corner office to the unemployment line. He'll fight back. He'll fire you. He can't fire me if he's already gone, Jessica said. I'm sending an email. Not to HR. Not to his boss. I'm sending it to the entire board of directors. And I'm attaching this presentation. Before Greg could argue, Jessica hung up. She opened her email. She pulled up the list of the board members. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Subject: a grave matter of executive misconduct and corporate malfeasance. Dear members of the board, my name is Jessica. You may not know me, but you will likely remember me from this morning's progress meeting. I was the woman whose life was displayed on the JUMBOTRON for your entertainment. She attached the file. She attached Mark's notes. And with a steady hand she clicked send. She had just declared war. The send button glowed on the screen for a moment before the window closed. Jessica sat back, her entire body trembling, not from fear but from a potent, unfamiliar surge of adrenaline. She had just bypassed every corporate protocol. She had directly accused the CEO of malicious, planned sabotage. She had, in all likelihood, just ended her 15-year career. But she did not care. She had nothing left to lose. The house was still. The silence that had felt empty and sad now felt charged, like the air before a lightning strike. She waited. The response, she knew, would be one of 2 things: immediate termination by Mark's allies or an immediate, frantic summons from the board. Her computer chimed. An email. It was not from the board. It was from the company's IT department. Subject: system alert, your network access has been revoked. She had been locked out. A cold dread washed over her. He was already moving against her. She tried to log into her email. Access denied. She tried to access the shared drive. Access denied. Of course. The moment her email hit the server, it would have triggered alerts. Mark or his high-level allies would have been notified instantly. They had cut her off. They were going to say she was a disgruntled employee. They were going to say she was hysterical, a woman scorned, fabricating evidence because she was upset about her wife. They would delete the file from the server. By the time the board convened, her proof would be gone. But Mark had underestimated her. Jessica was in logistics. She did not just plan, she had contingencies. The moment she downloaded the presentation file, she had not saved it to her laptop. She had saved it to a personal encrypted USB drive that she kept on her keychain. She pulled the keys from her purse, the small silver drive dangling from the ring. She had the file. She had the notes. They could wipe the server, but they could not wipe her pocket. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number, a New York area code. The company headquarters. She answered. Is this Jessica? The voice was female, sharp, and carried an authority that cut through the static. Yes, this is. This is Eleanor Vance. I am the chairwoman of the board of directors. We have received your email. We have seen the attachment. We are convening an emergency session. Can you be at headquarters in 1 hour? Relief washed through Jessica so powerfully her knees went weak. They locked me out of the system, Jessica said, her voice shaking. We are aware, Eleanor said, her voice cold. Mr. Mark is very efficient at covering his tracks. Or so he thinks. We have frozen the servers, but he had already initiated your termination. Do you have a copy of the file you sent? Yes, I do, Jessica said. On a thumb drive. Good, Eleanor said. Do not bring it to headquarters. We will send a private courier to your home to retrieve it. A third-party security team. We cannot trust our own at the moment. They will arrive in 15 minutes. Do not give it to anyone else. What about the meeting? Jessica asked. The meeting will be virtual. We are sending you a secure link to a different email address. What is your personal email? Jessica gave it to her. You will receive a link in 5 minutes, Eleanor said. Be ready, Jessica. You have made a very powerful accusation. You will need to defend it. The line clicked dead. Jessica stared at the phone. The board was moving. They were taking her seriously. The next 10 minutes were a whirlwind. The secure link arrived. A black, unmarked car pulled into her driveway. A man in a plain suit with an earpiece knocked on her door. He did not introduce himself. He simply held out a lockbox. Miss Jessica? Yes. The drive, please. She handed him the small silver drive. He placed it inside the foam-lined box, snapped it shut and turned and walked back to his car. He was gone as quickly as he had arrived. Jessica went back to her laptop. She clicked the secure link. A video conference window opened. One by one, faces appeared in the boxes. Stern older faces. The men and women who ran the company from shadows. Eleanor Vance was at the center, her expression unreadable. Then one final box lit up. Mark. He was in his office, his face a mask of controlled fury. He looked directly at Jessica's box, his eyes like ice chips. Jessica. Eleanor Vance began, her voice formal. You have accused the CEO of this company of intentionally and maliciously using corporate resources to publicly humiliate you and your wife, Samantha, for the purpose of manipulating the promotion process. Is this correct? Yes, Chairwoman, it is, Jessica said. She was surprised at how strong her voice sounded. Mark, you have seen the evidence. The embedded video file. The presenter notes. What is your response? Mark's smooth corporate smile slipped into place. Eleanor, members of the board. This is a deeply unfortunate situation. A misunderstanding. This employee, Jessica, is clearly under extreme emotional distress. As we all saw this morning, she suffered a terrible personal shock. He was painting her as unstable. Just as she expected. The video clip, Mark continued, was a mistake. A terrible technical error. An intern was prepping the presentation and clearly linked the wrong file. As for the notes, I use a transcription service for my brainstorming. Those notes were likely a garbled remnant of a different thought, entirely out of context. He was plausible. He was smooth. So it was an intern? Eleanor asked, her eyebrow raised. And this intern just happened to find a security clip of your 2 top candidates for promotion, and inserted it into the presentation by mistake? It seems that way, Mark said, feigning regret. As for Jessica's termination, she abandoned her post in the middle of a mandatory meeting and then immediately began accessing executive-level files she was not authorized to view. That is a flagrant breach of security protocol. We had no choice but to terminate her access. I am saddened it came to this. I have always valued Jessica. Jessica felt the rage building. He was lying. He was twisting everything. He's lying, Jessica said, her voice cutting through Mark's smooth explanation. Jessica, please, Mark said, his tone condescending. We understand you are upset. I am not upset, Mark. I am precise, Jessica snapped. You say it was an intern. But the file I sent the board was accessed and modified last night at 11:30 p.m. From your unique IP address. The one assigned to your home office. Not from an intern's desk. You put that file there yourself. The board members stiffened. Mark's smile twitched. That's a ridiculous accusation. Is it? Jessica pressed on. And as for those garbled notes. Do not mention Jessica. That's not a transcription error, Mark. That's an instruction. You instructed yourself not to mention me because you wanted the humiliation to be silent. You wanted me to slink away. This is slander. Mark boomed. And what about Maria? Jessica said, playing her final card. The color drained from Mark's face. Excuse me. Eleanor Vance said. Who is Maria? Ask him, Jessica said, pointing at Mark's square on the screen. Ask him about Maria, the financial analyst from 2 years ago. The one who found his expense report errors. The one who was silenced with a similar disgusting tactic. Ask Greg, my manager. He remembers. Eleanor Vance looked at Mark. His composure was gone. He was pale, his eyes wide. He knew he was trapped. I have no idea what she is talking about, Mark stammered. Chairwoman, Jessica said, he didn't just try to ruin my career. He has a pattern of using personal shame to silence and remove employees who threaten him. He did it to Maria. He did it to Samantha. And he did it to me. He is a liability. He is toxic. And he thinks he is untouchable. The boardroom was silent. Mark was breathing heavily, his mask completely gone. Eleanor Vance stared at Mark for a long, cold moment. Mark, she said, we are placing you on immediate indefinite administrative leave. We are opening a full third-party investigation into these allegations, starting with Maria's case. Do not contact any employees. Do not access any company systems. We are done here. Eleanor clicked and Mark's box disappeared. He was gone. The remaining board members looked at Jessica. Jessica, Eleanor said, her voice softer now. Your termination has been reversed, effective immediately. We apologize for the lapse in security that allowed your personal life to be displayed. The investigation will be thorough. Thank you, Chairwoman, Jessica said, her body numb. One more thing, Eleanor said. The SVP position. Given the circumstances, the promotion of Paulson has been rescinded, pending the investigation into Mark's conduct. The spot is open. We will be re-evaluating. The call ended. Jessica closed the laptop. She had won. She had faced the dragon and she had won. She should have felt victorious. She should have felt relief. But as she sat in her silent house, surrounded by the wreckage of her marriage, she just felt empty. She had won the battle, but she looked around at her life and it felt like she had lost the entire war. The humiliation was still there. And she was completely, utterly alone. The days that followed were a blur of hollow administrative tasks. Jessica was reinstated, but she did not return to the office. She was placed on paid leave, pending the results of the investigation. The company, through Eleanor Vance, was trying to be supportive, but Jessica knew what it really was. She was a problem. She was the center of a scandal, and they needed to keep her out of sight while they cleaned up Mark's mess. The silence of her house was the loudest sound she had ever heard. Samantha had tried to come back. She had shown up the day after the meeting, suitcase in hand, her face swollen from crying. Jessica had not opened the door. She had stood in the foyer looking at Samantha through the peephole, and felt nothing but a cold, hard stone in her chest. Jess, please. Samantha had cried through the wood. We can fix this. Don't let him win. He did this to us. He did this to you, Samantha, Jessica had called back, her voice devoid of emotion. You did the rest to me. She had left her own suitcases on the porch. Eventually, hours later, Samantha had taken them and gone. Jessica did not know where. She assumed to Linda. She found she did not care. The humiliation, however, did not leave with Samantha. It lingered. It was in the sympathetic, pitying text she received from co-workers. Thinking of you. So awful. Let me know if you need anything. You're so strong. They meant well, but every message was a reminder. They had all seen it. They had all seen her, the poor loyal wife, watching her marriage dissolve on a jumbotron. The word strong felt like an insult. She was not strong. She was just surviving. Her phone, which had been buzzing with these messages, went quiet for a full day. Then it lit up with a new kind of notification. It was a link. Sent from a number she did not recognize. It was an article. A gossip blog that covered the corporate world. The headline was brutal. CEO fired after exposing employees' lesbian affair on Jumbotron in mass meeting. Someone had leaked the story. Jessica's hands shook as she read it. The article had everything. The name of the company. The meeting. The Jumbotron. It described the scene in vivid, painful detail. It mentioned Jessica, the humiliated wife. It mentioned Samantha, the cheating spouse. It mentioned Linda, the other woman. Her most private pain was now public news. It was entertainment for strangers. She scrolled down to the comments section, a place she knew she should avoid, but she could not help herself. This Jessica woman must be a fool. How do you not know your wife is cheating? Honestly, the CEO did her a favor. Better to know, right? I feel so bad for her. In front of 5,000 people. I would have died. What's the big deal? They're both women. It's just drama. Jessica threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. She sank onto the sofa, her head in her hands. This was what Mark had done. He had not just tried to take her job. He had taken her name. He had taken her dignity. He had turned her into Jessica, the humiliated wife on the Jumbotron. She had won the battle with the board, but Mark was winning the war for her reputation. He had made her a public spectacle, a story of pity. She stayed on that sofa for hours. The sun set. The room grew dark. She did not move. She felt trapped in her own life, defined by a single terrible moment that she had not chosen. He thought about leaving. Taking the severance package the company would inevitably offer her, moving to a new state, changing her name. Starting over where no one knew what had happened. It was the easy choice. It was the coward's choice. It was the choice Mark expected her to make. It was the choice Samantha, in her weakness, would have made. Anger, slow and hot, began to burn through the fog of her despair. Mark had labeled her. The world had labeled her. They had made her a victim. What if she refused to be one? She stood up. Her legs were stiff. She walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water, her hand steady. She had been in logistics for 15 years. She was a fixer. She did not run from problems, she solved them. This was just the biggest, ugliest logistics problem of her life. The narrative was, poor Jessica, the humiliated wife. She was going to change the narrative. She picked up her phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She did not call the board. He did not call a lawyer. He called Greg. He answered on the first ring. Jessica? I saw the news. It's horrible. Are you okay? I'm fine, Greg, she said. I need you to do something for me. I'm locked out, but you're not. What is it? I need you to pull the performance reviews for the last 5 years. For me, for Paulson, and for Samantha. Jessica, I can't. That's a huge breach. Greg, she interrupted, her voice steel. Mark is gone, but his allies are still there. They are leaking this story to make me look like a hysterical victim and to make the board look weak. They are trying to control the narrative. I am going to feed them a different one. What narrative? The truth, Jessica said. Paulson, the man Mark chose for the SVP role, is incompetent. I need the numbers to prove it. I need my numbers, my project completion rates, my profit margins. And I need Samantha's. Why Samantha's? Greg asked, confused. Because this isn't just a story about a cheating wife. This is a story about a corrupt CEO who tried to get rid of his 2 most high-performing female managers so he could promote his incompetent male friend. I'm not a victim, Greg. I am the person who exposed him. There was a long silence. Jessica could hear Greg breathing. This is dangerous, he said. It's already dangerous, Jessica replied. They've already thrown the first punch. I'm just punching back. Okay, Greg said, his voice firming. Okay, Jessica. I'll get them. What are you going to do with them? Jessica looked at the cracked screen of her phone at the hateful comments. The press is already involved, she said. If they want a story, I'm going to give them the real one. I'm not going to be the wife who was cheated on. I'm going to be the woman who saved the company. She hung up. She knew she was playing with fire. She was taking on the entire corporate PR machine. They would try to destroy her. But for the first time since she saw that kiss on the Jumbotron, she did not feel humiliated. He felt like herself. The files arrived in Jessica's personal email an hour later. Greg had been fast. The subject line was blank. The attachment was a single password-protected zip file. He sent the password in a separate text message. Truth. Jessica opened the files. It was all there. Spreadsheets, performance charts, and annual reviews. The story the data told was even clearer than she had hoped. Paulson, Mark's pick for SVP, was a disaster. His projects were consistently over budget. His team had the highest turnover rate in the division. His reviews were full of weak, vague phrases. A good team player, manages relationships well. There was no substance. Then she opened her own file. 15 years of exceeds expectations. Her projects were, on average, 10% under budget. Her last major logistics overhaul had saved the company $9 million in a single quarter. Finally, she opened Samantha's. Her stomach tightened, but she forced herself to be objective. She was not a wife looking at her betrayer, she was an analyst looking at data. And the data was clear. Samantha was brilliant. Her marketing campaigns were legendary. She had won 3 national awards. She was, without question, the most qualified person for the marketing promotion she had been pursuing. The narrative was crystal clear. Mark had 2 female employees who were absolute superstars. Both were on track to become high-level executives. He, for his own corrupt reasons, wanted his friend Paulson in power. So he had found a way to eliminate them both. He used Samantha's personal failing to destroy her, and Jessica's public humiliation to silence her. He had pitted them against each other, assuming they would be too busy being enemies to see who the real villain was. Jessica picked up her phone. She looked at the gossip blog article again. The journalist who wrote it was named Sarah Jennings. Jessica found her email address in under a minute. She drafted a new message. Subject: the story you're missing. Miss Jennings, you recently wrote an article about the JUMBOTRON incident at my company. You painted me as a victim. You are not wrong, but you are not right. This was not a crime of passion. It was a calculated corporate assassination. Your story focused on the lesbian affair, but the real story is about the corporate corruption that CEO Mark used that affair to cover up. He didn't just expose an affair. He did it to install his underqualified friend into a position of power, bypassing 2 highly qualified female executives. I have attached the performance reviews of all 3 individuals. The numbers do not lie. If you want the real story, the one about a pattern of misogyny and corruption at one of the nation's largest companies, I will talk. But I will not be a victim. I will be your source. Jessica. She attached the sanitized, non-proprietary versions of the performance charts. She hit send. The reply came in less than 5 minutes. Miss Jessica. Call me. No. Jessica dialed the number. Sarah Jennings. This is Jessica. You have guts, Sarah said, her voice fast and sharp. And you have proof. I've been hearing rumors about Mark for years, but no one would ever go on the record. They were all too scared. They were scared because he used their private lives against them, Jessica said. He did it to me in front of 5,000 people. I'm not scared anymore. I'm just angry. Good, Sarah said. I'm running this. My editor will clear the front page. But they're going to come after you. The company's PR team will try to paint you as a liar, a disgruntled employee who breached confidentiality. That's why I need you to print my name, Jessica said. What? We can protect you. We can list you as an anonymous source. No, Jessica insisted. Mark's entire strategy was based on my shame. He assumed I would hide. He assumed I would be too humiliated to fight. If you print this anonymously, it looks like I'm still hiding. I want my name on it. I want them to know exactly who exposed this. I am not the humiliated wife. I am the woman who took down a corrupt CEO. That is the new narrative. There was a long silence on the line. Sarah seemed to be processing it. You are playing a very high-stakes game, Jessica, Sarah said. It's the only game I have left, Jessica replied. Okay, Sarah said. I'll do it. On one condition. I need to talk to the other woman. The one in the video. Jessica's blood ran cold. Linda. No. Your wife. Samantha. If she corroborates your story, that Mark was threatened by you both, the story becomes undeniable. It's not just a you versus him story. It's a pattern. Jessica thought about it. She thought about Samantha's crying, desperate face in the lobby. He did this to us. He set us up. Samantha was weak. He was a traitor. But she was also a victim of Mark's scheme. And she hated Mark right now, probably more than she even understood. I don't know where she is, Jessica said, which was true. Find her, Sarah said. You said yourself Mark pitted you against each other. The most powerful way to fight back is to unite. Get me Samantha. You have until tomorrow. Sarah hung up. Jessica stared at her phone. He had to find Samantha. She had no idea where to start. She had no family in the city. Her friends, well, they were their friends. Jessica scrolled through her contacts. She found the name, Linda. She had met her at company parties. She had her number from a team-building event years ago. Her finger hovered over the call button. What could she possibly say? Oh, Linda. You ruined my marriage. Now can I please speak to my wife? She took a deep breath and pressed the button. It rang once. Twice. Hello. Linda's voice was cautious, tired. Linda. It's Jessica. A sharp intake of breath on the other end. Jessica. I don't know what to say. I am so sorry. I'm not calling for an apology. Jessica cut her off, her voice flat. I need to find Samantha. Is she with you? Pause. No, she's not. But I haven't seen her since the meeting. My husband, he saw the news article. He kicked me out. I'm at a motel. Samantha, she's not answering my calls. I think she blames me for this. Jessica felt a strange cold pity. Linda was collateral damage too. She's not with you, Jessica said, her mind racing. Where else would she go? I don't know, Linda said, her voice breaking into a sob. She has a sister and... Maybe. Jessica, please, you have to believe me, I never meant for this. Her sister, Jessica said, ignoring the rest. That was right. A sister in Portland. But Samantha wouldn't have had time to get a flight to Portland. He was still in the city. She was alone. He was probably terrified. Jessica thought about the Samantha she used to know. Before the lies. Where would she go when she was scared? There was a small hotel. A boutique place downtown. They had stayed there for their 5th anniversary. It was their special occasion spot. It was expensive. Samantha would probably burn through her savings, but it was safe. It was anonymous. Thank you, Linda, Jessica said and hung up before Linda could reply. She grabbed her car keys. She was going to find her wife. Not to reconcile, but to get justice. The hotel lobby was all dark wood and soft lighting. It smelled like sandalwood. It was the kind of place that prided itself on discretion. Jessica walked straight to the front desk. A young man in a crisp suit looked up. Good evening, madam. How can I help you? I'm here to see a guest, Jessica said. Samantha. She gave her last name. The clerk typed. I do show a guest by that name. May I ask who is calling? I'm her sister, Jessica lied. It's a family emergency. The clerk hesitated, his training on privacy warring with Jessica's urgent, stone-cold expression. I can call up to her room if you like, he offered. Please. He picked up the phone. Miss Samantha? I have your sister here in the lobby. Yes, ma'am. He hung up. She's in room 412. She's expecting you. Jessica's heart hammered. Expecting me. She took the elevator, the quiet classical music making her skin crawl. She stepped out onto the 4th floor. The carpet was so thick her footsteps made no sound. She stood outside room 412. She raised her hand to knock, but it was shaking. She was not just facing her betrayer. She was facing the key to her entire plan. She knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Samantha stood there. She looked terrible. She was wearing a hotel bathrobe, her hair was a mess, and her eyes were red and hollow. The room behind her was dark, with an empty room service tray on the floor. When she saw Jessica, her expression was not one of hope. It was one of resignation. You came, Samantha whispered. I'm not here for you, Samantha, Jessica said, walking past her into the room. She did not want to be in the hallway. I'm here for me. What does that mean? Samantha closed the door. I talked to a reporter, Jessica said, turning to face her. I'm giving her the real story. Not the cheating wife story. The corrupt CEO story. The story about how Mark got rid of us, both of us, to promote Paulson. Samantha stared at her, uncomprehending. What? I have the proof, Sam. The performance reviews. My numbers, your numbers, Paulson's. It's clear. He targeted us because we were the best. He used your affair to do it. A flicker of the old Samantha appeared. The smart, ambitious marketing director. He targeted us? Yes. He needed you gone. He needed me gone. He used your weakness to take us both out. And now the entire world thinks I'm a fool and you're a monster. He wins. But he was fired. Samantha said. He was put on leave, Jessica corrected. His friends are still at the company. They're leaking stories to the press to make me look like an unstable victim. They're trying to save him. Unless we stop them. Samantha finally understood. What do you need? The reporter. Sarah Jennings. She needs you to go on the record. She needs you to confirm that Mark was threatened by you. That he knew about your qualifications. That he used this to get rid of you. Samantha sank onto the edge of the bed. Go on the record? Talk about the affair? To a reporter. They already know about the affair, Samantha. Jessica said, her frustration rising. The whole world knows. They saw it on a jumbotron. This is your one chance to change the story. Are you going to be the cheating wife for the rest of your life? Or are you going to be the woman who helped expose the man who tried to destroy you? Samantha looked at her hands. What about Linda? What about her? Jessica said coldly. Is this going to destroy her too? Her husband already kicked her out, Jessica said. This isn't about protecting Linda. This is about saving ourselves from the narrative Mark wrote for us. Samantha was quiet for a long time. She looked around the dark, expensive hotel room. This was her life now. A lonely room hiding from the world. He did this, Samantha said, her voice low and full of a new, cold anger. That man. He showed that video. He knew. She looked up at Jessica. He had been making comments for weeks, asking me if I was working well with Linda, asking if my home life was stable. I thought he was just being a boss. But he was hunting. Yes, Jessica said. He was. And you, Samantha looked at Jessica, her eyes filled with a new, painful understanding. He did this to you. To humiliate you. To make you quit. Yes. And you didn't quit, Samantha said, a strange awe in her voice. You're fighting him. I am fighting him, Jessica confirmed. The question is, are you? Samantha stood up. She walked to the desk, picked up her phone, and then looked back at Jessica. Give me the number, Samantha said. I'll talk to her. I'll tell her everything. I'll tell her how Mark used me and how he used Linda and how he tried to destroy you. I'll give her everything she needs. You will. Jessica was stunned. She had expected a fight, more tears, more excuses. I have lost everything, Jessica, Samantha said, her voice breaking, but not with self-pity. With rage. I lost my marriage. I lost my reputation. I lost my job. I have nothing left to lose. But I will not let that man win. I will not let him walk away from this. Jessica nodded. She gave her the number. She watched as Samantha, the woman who had betrayed her, dialed the reporter. She watched as she took a deep breath. Hello, Ms. Jennings. My name is Samantha. I'm Jessica's wife. And I'm ready to talk about what Mark really did. Jessica turned and left the hotel room. She did not say goodbye. She did not say thank you. There was nothing left to say between them. As she stepped out into the cool night air, she felt a grim sense of victory. She had done it. She had turned her enemy into her unwilling ally. The story was going to run. And it was going to be an explosion. The article hit the front page of the news site at 6 a.m. the next morning. The headline was explosive. I am not a victim. CO's Jumbotron scandal exposed as corrupt plot to oust female execs. Whistleblower Jessica speaks out. It was brilliant. Sarah Jennings had used Jessica's own words. She had reframed the entire event. The article was a masterpiece of corporate takedown. It opened with the humiliating Jumbotron scene, but immediately pivoted. It laid out the performance data. Jessica's profit margins, Samantha's awards, and Paulson's history of failure. Then came the quotes. Jessica was quoted, her voice strong and clear. This was never about a personal failing. It was about a CEO who was so threatened by qualified women that he weaponized our private lives to force us out. He assumed I would be too ashamed to speak. He was wrong. Then came Samantha's confirmation. Mr. Mark was aware of my performance and my ambition. He used my personal terrible mistake as a tool to remove me and my wife, Jessica, his two biggest threats, from the board's consideration. What he did was not an accident. It was a character assassination. The article even included a quote from Greg, listed as a senior manager who wished to remain anonymous, confirming Mark's pattern of targeting, and mentioning the suspicious departure of Maria 2 years prior. It was a tidal wave. Within an hour, the company's stock, which had wobbled after the first gossip piece, began to plummet. By 9 a.m. Jessica's phone was ringing. It was Eleanor Vance, the chairwoman of the board. She did not sound happy. Jessica, she said, her voice like ice. You have created a firestorm. I simply told the truth, Eleanor, Jessica said, her heart pounding. Your team was leaking stories painting me as a victim. I corrected the record. You also released internal performance metrics. You discussed another former employee's case. You have exposed this company to massive legal liability. Mark exposed the company to liability when he used a security camera to broadcast my wife's affair, Jessica retorted. I just provided the context. There was a heavy sigh on the line. What do you want, Jessica? A payout? You've made your point. You'll get a very generous severance package. Just be quiet. This was the moment. The crossroads. She could take the money and disappear. It was the win she had been offered. I don't want a severance package, Eleanor, Jessica said. What? You're right. I have created a firestorm. Your stock is dropping. Your company is now the national poster child for misogyny and corruption. You have a PR nightmare that is going to cost you millions. And you have an empty SVP slot that you tried to fill with an incompetent fool. Get to the point, Jessica, Eleanor said. The point is you need to fix this. Not with money. With action. You need to show the world that you are not the company Mark built. You need to show them that you reward the people he tried to bury. A long, cold silence. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting, Jessica said, her voice shaking but full of power, that you give me the job. You give me the senior vice president position. The one I earned. The one Mark tried to steal from me. Eleanor laughed. A short, sharp, disbelieving bark. You are suggesting we promote the woman who just leaked internal documents to the press? The woman at the center of the scandal. Yes, Jessica said. Because I'm also the only one who can fix it. You promote me and you release a statement. You say that the company investigated Mark's calculated attack, and as a result, recognized the exceptional qualifications of the very person he tried to silence. You don't make me the victim you're paying off. You make me the hero you're promoting. It's the only story, Jessica continued, that saves your brand. It's the only story that proves you're serious about reform. It's the only story that makes this stop. Eleanor was quiet. Jessica could hear her thinking. You are a very, very smart woman, Jessica, Eleanor said finally. And a very dangerous one. I'm a logistics expert, Eleanor, Jessica said. I'm just solving the problem. The board will not approve this. You are a renegade. The board will approve whatever you tell them to, Eleanor. Because right now I have the narrative. And if you don't do this, Sarah Jennings gets a follow-up story. Company board silences whistleblower after promising reform. Your stock won't just drop. It will be delisted. It was blackmail. It was hardball. It was the language Mark understood. And it was the language the board, in its desperation, would have to listen to. You will be at headquarters at 4 p.m., Eleanor said. You will meet with the full compensation committee. And you had better be the most impressive candidate they have ever seen. The line went dead. Jessica hung up the phone. She had done it. She had forced her way into the room. But now she had to win. She spent the next 6 hours not as a victim, not as a wife, but as an executive. She tore apart the company's last quarter logistics. She found efficiencies they had missed. She built a new proposal, a first 90 days plan, that would save them $20 million by the end of the year. She was not just going to ask for the job. She was going to prove that not giving it to her was the stupidest mistake they could make. She put on her best suit. Not the one from the meeting. That one was in the trash. He put on a new one. Sharp, black, powerful. As she was walking out the door, her personal email chimed. It was from Samantha. I saw the article. What you did. It was amazing. You changed the story. I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be. But I am. Good luck, Jessica. You deserve it. Jessica read the message. He felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness. Not love. But a distant, sad acknowledgement. They had been a team once. And in a strange, twisted way they had been a team one last time. She deleted the email. She got in her car and drove to headquarters. She was not the humiliated wife walking into the auditorium. She was the future SVP walking in to claim her office. The corporate headquarters loomed, a tower of glass and steel. As Jessica walked through the lobby, the same lobby she had fled from just days before, she felt the eyes. The security guards, the receptionists, the employees passing by, they all recognized her. The JUMBOTRON wife. But their expressions were different now. The pity was gone. The hushed whispers were not mocking. They were expressions of awe, of fear. She was the woman who had taken down the CEO. She walked to the executive elevator and used the temporary pass Eleanor had sent. She rode to the 50th floor, the C-suite. The doors opened onto a silent, plush-carpeted hallway. Eleanor Vance was waiting for her, standing outside a massive boardroom. "Jessica," she said, her face impossible to read. "They're waiting." "Thank you, Eleanor." "Don't thank me," Eleanor said, her voice low. "You force my hand. They are angry. They do not like being blackmailed. You had better be as good as you think you are." "I'm better," Jessica said. She walked into the boardroom. The full board of directors. 10 men and 3 women, all in dark suits, all looking at her as if she were a bomb that had just been placed on their table. "Miss Jessica," a man at the head of the table said. "I am Thomas, the lead counsel. We are here to discuss your demands." "I am not here to make demands," Jessica said, walking to the front of the room. She placed her personal laptop on the table and plugged it into the projector. She did not wait for permission. "I am here to present a solution. Your company has 2 problems. The first is a PR problem. The second is an efficiency problem. I am the solution to both." An image flashed onto the screen. It was her first 90 days plan. "Your logistics division is bleeding money," Jessica began, her voice ringing with the confidence she had always felt when talking about her work. "Your supply chain is a mess. Mark's leadership was lazy. He relied on outdated systems." For 20 minutes, Jessica did not mention Mark. She did not mention Samantha or the JUMBOTRON or the humiliation. She talked about numbers. She talked about shipping routes. She talked about automated inventory systems. She showed them, inarguable in black and white, how she was going to save them $20 million. She was brilliant. She knew her material. She knew their company. She was, as she had told Greg, the bedrock. When she finished, the room was silent. The hostile expressions had been replaced with looks of shrewd calculation. These were business people. They did not care about her feelings. They cared about the bottom line. And she had just handed them a new one. "As you can see," Jessica concluded, "I was the most qualified candidate for this job before the events of this week. The only thing that has changed is that now the entire world knows it." She closed her laptop. "That's my presentation. As for your PR problem, if you promote me, the story is over. You release a statement. You say, 'We investigated Mr. Mark's misconduct and, in the process, discovered that he was actively suppressing our most valuable asset. We have corrected this by promoting Jessica to SVP. We are a company of integrity. The narrative is fixed. The stock goes up. If you don't." She let the threat hang in the air. Thomas, the lawyer, leaned back. "You have put us in an impossible position." "I have put you in a very simple position," Jessica countered. "Are you a company that rewards corruption, or are you a company that rewards results?" Eleanor Vance, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Thank you, Jessica. Please wait outside." Jessica nodded. She walked out of the boardroom and stood in the silent 50th floor hallway. This was it. She waited for what felt like a lifetime. 10 minutes. 20. She heard raised voices from behind the thick wooden doors. They were arguing. "She's a whistleblower. We can't trust her. She's a genius. Did you see those numbers? What choice do we have? The press will crucify us." Finally, the door opened. Eleanor Vance stepped out. Her face was grim. "They're not happy," Eleanor said. Jessica's heart sank. "They are furious," Eleanor continued. "They feel like you held a gun to their heads. They hate you for it." "So that's it," Jessica said, her voice hollow. "However," Eleanor said, a tiny, sharp smile appearing on her face. "They are, as you pointedly noted, business people. They hate you, but they respect your numbers. And they fear your reporter even more." She held out her hand. "Congratulations, Ms. Jessica. You start Monday. We will be drafting your employment contract. And we will be drafting the press release just as you dictated it." Jessica looked at her hand. He took it. It was cold. "Thank you, Chairwoman." "Don't call me that," Eleanor said. "Call me Eleanor. We're colleagues now." And Jessica, a piece of advice. "Yes. You won. You were smarter and you were braver. But you used a bomb to do it. You can only do that once. From now on, you prove your loyalty. You prove you are a builder, not just a destroyer. Do you understand me?" "I understand," Jessica said. "I'm not the woman who destroys. I'm the woman who fixes. Let me prove it." Eleanor nodded. Good. Your new office is on this floor. My assistant will show you. Jessica watched Eleanor walk away. She had done it. She had climbed to the top of the tower. She was led to a massive corner office. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the entire city. It was the office that should have been hers. It was the office Mark had tried to give to his friend. It was empty. Just a large desk and a chair. Jessica walked to the window. She looked down at the city. It was a long way down. She was SVP. She had her career. She had her reputation back, stronger than before. She had won. But the victory felt strange. It was cold. She had paid for this office with her marriage. With her privacy. With her trust. The humiliation she realized would never fully go away. It was part of her story now. The Jumbotron was a scar. But as she looked out the window, she realized it was not the only part of her story. It was just the beginning of this new chapter. She had survived. And that, she decided, was enough. The press release went out an hour later. It was exactly as Jessica had scripted it. The company announced Mark's permanent departure, following an investigation that revealed a gross misuse of power and a violation of our corporate code of conduct. The final paragraph was the masterstroke. Our investigation also brought to light the exceptional talent of Jessica, who was a target of Mr. Mark's misconduct. The board is proud to announce her immediate promotion to Senior Vice President of Logistics. We are a company that rewards integrity and performance, and Jessica embodies both. The story changed instantly. Sarah Jennings' follow-up headline was, Victory. Whistleblower Jessica promoted to SVP after exposing CEO's corrupt Jumbotron plot. The narrative was fixed. Jessica was no longer the humiliated wife. She was the SVP. The next few months were a brutal, exhausting, and deeply satisfying climb. Jessica worked 18-hour days. She did not just implement her 90-day plan, she finished it in 60. She renegotiated shipping contracts. She restructured 3 departments. She did, in fact, save the company $20 million. The board, who had hated her, began to grudgingly respect her. The bomb thrower was, as she had promised, a builder. She never heard from Samantha again. She heard through the grapevine that she had moved to Portland to be near her sister. She had not gotten a job in marketing. She was apparently working in a bookstore. Jessica had her lawyers handle the divorce. It was quiet, fast, and uncontested. She sold the house they had shared, the house with the broken picture frames, and moved into a sleek, modern apartment downtown closer to the office. She also never saw Linda again. Linda had disappeared, swallowed up by the consequences of her own actions. One evening, 6 months after the meeting, Jessica was working late in her corner office. She was reviewing quarterly reports, her window overlooking the city lights. There was a knock on her door. It was Greg, her old manager. Jessica? Or should I call you Madam SVP? He smiled. Greg, come in. What are you doing here so late? Just finishing up, he said. He looked around the office. Wow, this is quite the view. It's just an office, Jessica said. Is it? Greg said. I don't know. I was there, Jess. In the auditorium. I saw your face. And I just wanted to say, what you did, it was the bravest thing I have ever seen. Jessica looked at him. He was a good man. I wasn't brave, Greg. I was just out of options. No, he insisted. You had the option to run. You had the option to take the money and hide. Everyone would have understood. But you stayed. You fought. And you didn't just win for you. You won for Maria. You won for all of us who were too scared to stand up to him. Jessica felt an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. She had been so focused on the fight, on the numbers, on the victory, that she had not considered what it meant to anyone else. Thank you, Greg, she said, her voice quiet. We're, going out for a drink. The old team. To celebrate the quarterly numbers. You should come. Jessica hesitated. She had not socialized. She had just worked. Come on, boss, Greg smiled. You earned it. Let them see the woman, not just the SVP. Jessica looked at the spreadsheets on her screen. Then she looked at Greg. Okay, she said. Hey, let me grab my coat. She walked out of the office, turning off the light. She rode down the elevator with Greg, the two of them talking about logistics, but this time laughing. They walked into the bar downtown and her old team was there. They cheered when she walked in. It was not pity. It was not fear. It was genuine respect. A man at the bar who she did not know leaned over. "Hey, I know you," he said. "You're that woman. The one from the news. The JUMBOTRON lady." Jessica stiffened. "The scar. That was amazing," the man said, raising his glass. "What you did took guts. Cheers to you." Jessica looked at him surprised. She looked at her team who were all smiling. She had thought the humiliation would define her forever. She thought it was a stain that would never wash out. But sitting there, surrounded by people who respected her, she realized the man was right. The story was not the humiliation. The story was what came after. The JUMBOTRON had been Mark's weapon to destroy her. But she had taken it, and in the end she had turned it into a platform. She had not just survived the fall. She had learned how to fly. She raised her glass, a small, genuine smile touching her lips for the first time in months. "Cheers," she said. And for the first time she truly felt free.